Mi nombre es Faustino Torres Arauz.
My name is Faustino Torres Arauz. I'm from Nicaragua, from the Association of Farm Workers, and I'm the secretary of the international relations of my organizations, and also work with the International Coalition of Farm Workers in Central America, which is part of Latin America Via Campesina. The organization ATC was born in the 70s in the department of Carazo, which is a region close to Managua. It was born like a project of the farm workers to defend their interests of the agriculture sector, the exploitation in the agriculture sector. This organized by protests and march and strikes to defend the workers' rights. That was coincide with the social movement against the Somoza regime. And that's for the reason that the ATC is close linked to that revolutionary movement against Somoza. In 1978 was incorporated, and after the triumph of the Sandinista Revolution in 1979 is that the ATC, because it was part of the fight against the dictatorship of Somoza, there was no dictatorship anymore, so the ATC become fundamental part of the movement, of the process of land reform, the access to the land of all peasants of Nicaragua, and education, literacy programs, so illiterate people have the tools, and organize the labor in the country, form unions. And that was the main process of the ATC. The union, we form unions in the agricultural sector, and some in private sector too, create unions and created cooperatives so they can produce food, do farm work. Obviously, the ATC, when we are in that process, we were attacked by the imperialistic country, and we have to organize. And it was a very interesting process because while the men was going to the war to defend the Sandinista Revolution, the women, the families, they organized themselves to produce the land. And that was a new equity, gender equity. The women was in charge of the production to secure food in the front and also in their communities. So we have these two moments. The moment before the dictatorship and the second phase is as part of the revolution. And I work in the Sandinista movement. I started working in the Sandinista movement. I was doing the political formation of the workers, and I worked many years on that. I work in the war zone, which is to defend the revolution, and I was organizing the peasants and the workers, and making the ATC form and other organizations as well to defend the revolution. It was a long period that I worked, 10 years. That was how much it lasted the first time that the Sandinista revolution was in power. And to do this job, I actually went to the Soviet Union and to Bulgaria to receive the tools to do this ideological teaching. But I have to say that the ATC get organizing to defend the labor force. The Sandinista proposal is to end the Somoza dictatorship, but also create a government program that put the workers in the top. So there was a coincidence between the Sandinista revolution and the ATC, which was to put the workers in power, which is similar to Carlos Fonseca thinking. So we pretty much aligned with them in the fields and the farms. They saw an alternative to organize themselves in the unions to have better rights, but also we're looking at the government program to recognize their historic movement, to leave poverty and uneducated system in which we were. And that's why we become the fundamental force of change to work around those tasks. In that moment, all the process of formation, that was political formation to our leaders of the ATC, in reality, in Nicaragua, who work in the ATC and the unions and other organizations, cooperatives, we were part of the Sandinista movement of national liberty, national freedom. The Sandinista government understand that, and it was a very easy match in the social movement. We become a solid social movement and unity of two forces. It was possible that while the guerrilla was fighting in the 70s, we have to provide them with food, we have to provide them with security houses, give them support, create new people for the movement, and that was the first part of the Sandinista Revolution. The second part is when we are part of the changes in the government, and that was very important because we were able to organize ourselves and fight for our rights in more favored conditions. We definitely won a lot of benefits that we were fighting for, and that's what we were able to do or accomplish in the government. When we passed to the opposition, because in 1990 we lost the election, the ATC became one of the most important force against the neoliberal governments. We were able to keep the social movement alive and to defend many of the benefits and the rights that we were able to conquer after the triumph of the Sandinista Revolution. The ATC is a support. It's how we organize to fight the bourgeois, the proletarian fighting the bourgeois. So we joined the Sandinista movement in 1979. We were all happy in that contest. The popular farms, the agriculture movement or the farm worker movement, they organized, they were motivated to accomplish the process of increased food production, get rid of illiteracy. There was movement to organize to defend the nation. There was hundreds of thousands of unions that were formed. What was our role in that moment? What happened is that Ronald Reagan took power in the United States, and we were pretty much invaded. We are in war, and we have to prepare military to defend the revolution. Many of the soldiers in the Sandinista movement came from the ATC, the unions in their locations. The cooperatives also get trained to defend the revolution. There was hundreds of youths in the fields teaching literacy. There were youths getting ready to do health job in the fields, and there was hundreds of youths ready to fight or getting ready to fight. We accomplished many things during the revolution that improved the lives of thousands of families, and our task was to defend the revolution. We joined the Sandinista movement to defend the country and stabilize the nation. And obviously we have to do a lot of work to do formation. We have more information, capacity, and political thinking, technical knowledge to improve the knowledge of the rest of our members. It was a very difficult, very tough work, but it was very important. In 1984, ATC was the first one to to incorporate, create a women's secretariat. If the men were defending the revolution, the women also need the recognize for the rights. If the men left or went away to defend the revolution, then the women stay in the land to produce the land, they have the rights. So we create the secretariat of the women in that context, in that historic context, and work with the youth too, so they can get prepared, because it was a difficult moment. We have a lot of people who die. We have a lot of people that were lost in the front. There was a lot of farms that they were lost by sabotage, and it was a very difficult time. The revolution support or last the 10 years of the first time was because the ATC was there. We lost the election, and we keep working for the rights of the farm workers and the continuation of the Sandinista Revolution. The context have changed. The context has changed all the times. We have the end of the Cold War, while the imperialism was financing the Contras. We lost all support. So we lost the election. And because that happened because the people, or the population, don't want any more war. And when we lost the election, we have to review our processes. We start to come to an agreement between the Contras, between the army, the workers, the farm workers, and the businessmen, and come to an agreement. And it was also for conservation, to maintain some of the wins. It was a reconciliation process for one point, very important point. The enemy was not the same. The enemy was not a violent war. It was not a war that was financed from the exterior. It was problems in the inside. The right won, there was crisis, there was anger. Some farmers lost their land because the new government was returning the land that was given to them in the land reform. So there was not a lot of liberty to organize. The interest of the bourgeoisie was displacing some of the war that we have. There was a different conditions. So we have to work in a reconciliation process and reconcile and work for other problems, crisis, hunger, poverty. It's fundamental. It's a very important process because many of the Contras, they understand why or what was our movement. They didn't understand that we were trying to build a peace, and that's a very important process that we did at that time. We have to remember that we have a lot of land. We control a lot of land for the land reform, and then we have to negotiate some of that land to give it to the Contras and some retirees from the National Guard, and we were part of that process of reconciliation. That it advanced this process. At the end, the retirees from the Contras and the army, they become part of the organization and help in the reconstruction, and also left the extreme poverty, which somehow helped also the Sandinista movement. The war was brutal. We lost a lot of lives. There was a lot of injuries, but we passed to another moment, the moment of reconciliation. Of who made the consideration is the people who was fighting. It was not the politicians. The politicians were just doing discourses, but in fact it was the soldiers who do the consideration. The fight is a global fight. Nicaragua is defending his revolution. We have to give solidarity to many other countries, even inside the United States. There is a lot of solidarity. When the Vietnam War started, there was a lot of people in the United States that came out to stop the war. When Reagan was supporting the Contras in Nicaragua, there was a lot of families that support us in the United States. And Europeans also come over here. Solidarity is very important because solidarity is a need. But it's also government. It's not something of the government, it's something of the people that understand that the aggression is not what they want. The solidarity is so important than for us to end the blockade in Cuba and to help the blockade in Venezuela and Bolivia and of course of Nicaragua. We have to get solidarity in all these countries, and that's being internationalist, which is linking the people from the United States and the people from Nicaragua, the people from each country, because we can overcome this crisis. So it is very important to do a call to have people coming, to come brigades and learn about what's the reality of Nicaragua, and they will tell them to them, because the big change, the big communication change, they are saying a lot of lies about the conditions of Nicaragua. The solidarity only comes with the exchange of experience. That can be women and men, friends that come to Nicaragua, and they can understand what kind of problems we face and how to solve them. We are in a year very difficult. We are commemorating the 25 years of the food sovereignty, and it's also part of the La Vía Campesina. It's one of the main focus of La Vía Campesina. We believe that the people needs to be free, and for what you consume, for what you are dependent of the food, you are not free. That's why we need to improve the livelihood of the peasant and to give the peasant all the support so they can produce the food that is going to feed us. Not the corporations, because corporations also produce poverty. We need to see about climate change. We need to have a different kind of productions to help the reductions of greenhouses. We need to put the peasant farming in the international agenda, because the peasant farm production is organic, is not transgenic, is organic, is ecologically done, and that will help to improve the livelihood of the people and also combat climate change. We need to put in the agenda that we have to be responsible for the consumption that we do. And being responsible in the consumption is that we also need enough local farming. The pandemic has difficulted everything. There's a lot of unemployment. So we need, after this crisis, we need to put agriculture in the center for produce food and be sovereign, have a food sovereignty. It happened in here, in the clock, in La Vía Campesina, and in other organizations. We are turning 25 years of food sovereignty, and that's important. A good fit population who can be very strong and help in any pandemic. Of course, it's a priority of the government, of the Sandinista government, and the peasants communities to put agriculture in the center. Now, we need to work more with the youth and give them political foundation. They understand that fight between the bourgeois and the proletarian. And we have a very active campaign with the youth on that regard. Many youths have a very high ranking positions in the government and in the organizations. And we interact, we reach out to them, because we need them. We need them even in social media, because there is a lot of misinformation in social media, and they are the ones who can manage this better. That's a very important task. We have that teaching also in the schools. We have the Nasiwali Clinic, it's an agroecology school, and we have many others in the continent to create a formation of youth so they can be clear of the context and at least they can know that they can finish and get fed up or be dreamed by what the privilege that the other side or capitalism foment on the youth, consumism. There's been 42 years from the revolution of the Sandinista Revolution, and the organizations it's 43 years old. So it is time to work more with the youth. It's also an interest of the Sandinista government to work with the youth. We need to remember that we have a youth in the country that doesn't get into the maras. We don't have maras in here. Of course, we have some problems. There is some very little problem with drugs, but we don't have a lot of violence. And we have to get more information to the youth. That's one of a very important priority. I want to send a message to the people in the United States. Every time that we talk about the United States, we always are clear. It's clear for us. One thing is the U.S. government, and something else is the U.S. people. Is the U.S. people, because it's a solidary people. The people from the United States, they have been very close to the Nicaraguan people. We have the same history. We know the same history. We even have similar customs. But I want to tell you that we need the solidarity of the U.S. people. We don't want the American dream. On the contrary, these people want the country that they has in company with the American people. So we need to have exchange, we need to have solidarity, because the people of Nicaragua, the people of the United States, and the people of Latin America should say no to the war, yes to peace. And we need to add more people that has the same vision, so we can have a better planet, a more just planet, a more transparent planet for the future of the new generations, because we need to protect the planet against climate change. We need a lot of solidarity and a lot of brotherhood.